the Italian Grand Prix was supposed to be a story of Max Verstappen's dominance, a clinical display of control at the front of the grid. But what truly set the F1 world on fire was not the Red Bull victory. It was the drama brewing inside McLaren's papaya-coloured garage. Oscar Piastri, the young Australian hailed as one of the brightest stars of this generation, appeared to be robbed of a fair fight after being ordered to let his teammate through. The decision sparked outrage across the paddock, with Toto Wolff, Max Verstappen, and thousands of fans openly questioning McLaren's motives. Was this simply a strategic call, or the smoking gun that confirms months of whispers about favouritism inside the team? If you want to understand why this moment could change the course of the entire season, and possibly McLaren's future, you'll want to watch this video until the very end. And if you're passionate about getting the real story behind Formula One's biggest controversies, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the next twist in this saga. Let's break down exactly what happened. Oscar Piastri entered the Italian Grand Prix as one of the key figures in the championship battle, a driver who has been hailed for his composure, speed, and ability to thrive under pressure. Lando Norris, on the other hand, has been McLaren's poster boy for years, the fan favourite with a global profile and strong backing from British media. For months, rumours of favouritism inside the McLaren camp have circulated quietly, dismissed by the team as noise. But what happened at Monza has given those whispers a deafening new echo. Here's the sequence of events. With just 8 laps left, Piastri was sitting in third, behind his teammate in second, and Verstappen out in front. McLaren called him in first, and his pit crew executed what can only be described as perfection, a 1.91 second stop, the fastest of the entire race. 1 lap later, Norris came in for his stop. That's when disaster struck. A faulty wheel gun cost him precious seconds, and in the blink of an eye, the race order flipped. Piastri emerged ahead, and suddenly the Australian was set to finish ahead of his teammate on merit. But instead of celebrating the undercut and a flawless stop, McLaren intervened. Over team radio, Piastri was told to give the place back. The reasoning? This was like Hungary last year, where pit stop sequencing had been designed for team reasons. Essentially, they argued that Norris had been ahead all race, so it was only fair to restore him to that position. Piastri's reply revealed his frustration. "Mate, we said a slow pit stop is part of racing, so I don't really get what's changed here." In other words, why punish me for the team's mistake? Yet despite the sting, he obeyed. He slowed, let Norris through, and carried on to the checkered flag in fourth. The McLaren radio thanked him, acknowledging it was painful, but claiming it was the right thing. But was it? This is where the controversy ignites. Formula One is built on the very premise that luck, mistakes, and split-second drama shape the outcome. A slow stop is as much a part of racing as a blistered tyre or a missed braking point. By overriding that natural order, McLaren opened themselves to accusations of manipulating results. Fans immediately branded it sabotage, not a strategic decision, but deliberate interference to protect Norris. McLaren's defence came swiftly. Team principal Andrea Stella explained that the team's expectation was for Norris to rejoin ahead, and when that didn't happen, they felt compelled to reset the order. But this explanation only poured fuel on the fire, because in doing so, Stella essentially confirmed that McLaren had predetermined who they wanted in front. To the outside world, it looked less like fairness and more like favouritism. Even other teams weighed in. Toto Wolff, never one to shy away from stirring the pot, warned of the precedent McLaren had set. If one slow stop can justify a team order, where does it end? What if it's a botched tyre choice or a bad strategy call? Do you keep switching the drivers around? Wolff's point was simple: once you go down this road, you risk undermining the very essence of competition. Max Verstappen was far less diplomatic. Over the radio, he openly laughed at McLaren's call, mocking the idea that a driver should surrender a position because of a teammate's mistake. Later, in interviews, he softened the tone but still reminded everyone that mishaps are part of racing. Coming from a four-time champion, that was a brutal indictment of McLaren's philosophy. And then came the fans. Social media erupted in outrage. Many accused McLaren of shielding Norris and handicapping Piastri. One viral post claimed, "Lando Norris is being spoon-fed into a championship battle at the expense of the much better driver Oscar Piastri." Another commentator wrote that Verstappen himself would have never obeyed such an order, and Piastri's compliance only made the situation more painful to watch. The backlash was visible even at Monza. When Norris walked onto the podium stage, the crowd's reaction was mixed, and to some ears, it sounded like boos. Sky Sports commentator David Croft even asked aloud, "Is that cheers or jeers?" The fact that such doubt even existed tells us just how damaging this has been to Norris's public image. Let's step back for a moment. Why does this matter so much? Because the championship is on a knife edge. Before Monza, Piastri held a 34-point lead over Norris. After being forced to give up his position, that margin has shrunk to 31. It might not sound like much, but with 8 races left, every single point could prove decisive. If McLaren continues to intervene in this way, they risk alienating their own driver and handing Verstappen an even greater advantage. Some argue Piastri was wise to comply. By keeping the peace, he avoids escalating conflict within the team and may earn goodwill for future battles. But there's another perspective, that by obeying, he has set a dangerous precedent of his own. If McLaren knows he will always comply, what's to stop them from making similar calls again? And if this becomes a pattern, how long before Piastri decides he's had enough of being treated as the number 2? There's also the media angle. For years, broadcasters like Sky Sports have been accused of favouring Norris, giving him more airtime and framing him as the team's hero. When moments like Monza happen, it reinforces those narratives, creating even more resentment among fans who believe Piastri is the more deserving racer. In the long run, this could fracture McLaren's fan base and even damage their reputation as a fair, competitive team. And what about Norris himself? He may not have asked for this, but he is the beneficiary. The danger is that he now carries the stigma of being the protected driver, much like others before him who were accused of relying on team favouritism. So where does this leave McLaren? In a precarious position. They wanted to avoid internal conflict, but instead, they've magnified it. They wanted to project unity, but instead, they fueled division. Their decision at Monza will not fade quietly. It will be a reference point in every future controversy, every team order, every argument about fairness. The championship is still wide open, but the psychological battle has begun. Piastri may have swallowed his pride this time, but don't be surprised if, in the heat of a future race, he decides to fight back. And if that moment comes, McLaren may discover that favouritism, once exposed, is a fire that cannot be controlled. So here's the real question. Did McLaren simply restore order, or did they sacrifice sporting fairness to push their chosen driver forward? And if this pattern continues, could Oscar Piastri one day decide he's had enough of being the second option in Papaya?